Good morning. It's Monday in Manhattan. I'm Jared Wassinger here with Jason Hilgers. Going to have a lot of things to talk about today, but first we just want to let people know tomorrow is election day, so go vote. There's a lot that's going to be on the ballot this year, Jason. We got a lot of local elections going on, so city commission candidates I'm sure folks have seen signs around the community for both the city commission and the school district. There's 3 spots open. On the city commission, we got about 8 candidates, which is a lot, more than I've seen in recent years. And then as well with the school district, I believe there's 4 spots open and 5 candidates. So that'll be on the ballot. Manhattan City voters within city limits will also be asked about the 0.3 sales tax initiative that's dedicated to the levee, airport runway reconstruction, North Campus Corridor, Aggieville, joint maintenance facility, and the Douglas Recreation Center, that funding effort. And then there's also a constitutional amendment that all voters in the state of Kansas are going to be voting on, Jason. And that one has to deal with eliminating the state census, if you're familiar with that one. It's a thing that every 10 years the national government does a census, counts everybody, and we're the only state in the country that also does a state census and does some recounting, particularly related to students and military folks. So if you have questions about the election and want to see your sample ballot, know where your polling location is, you can go to rileycountyks.gov/elections. You can see your sample ballot, figure that out tomorrow from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Is when you can vote. Add-a-bus rides are going to be free all day, so if you need a ride to a polling location, look at the Add-a-bus routes, and they can get you there. Moving forward, we got a city commission meeting tomorrow as well, so folks will be watching the election results roll in, and we'll be here at City Hall starting at 7 p.m. for a city commission meeting. Got quite a long agenda, Jason. A lot of topics, but one in particular is the conference center expansion.
Yeah, last January the commission took action to increase the amount with HCW to expand the conference center. At that point in time, we were at $3.5 million. Since then, HCW has went out to bid and realized the expansion with construction cost, design, some FF&E is going to be about $4.99 million, almost $5 million.
A little bit more expensive.
Yeah, we had a market adjustment. Obviously, the construction companies came in a little higher than their architects were estimating, but they have value engineered that building a little bit more and have reached a point where they're ready to move forward. So the agreement we adjusted in January of 19 is coming back before the governing body to amend to increase that rate. We have about $1.79 million of the $499 will be repayable by HCW. That's an increase from the last structure we had, where $800,000 of the 3.5 was scheduled to come from HCW. So we've increased that. Most of that is at the balloon payment, which is stretched out now through 2046.
Wow.
So they're making annual payments. They have been making annual payments, and they'll continue to make annual payments with a larger balloon payment in that year. So it's about 15,000 square feet of additional space. About 7,500 will be usable. The current facility today is 30,000 square feet with 15,000 square feet of usable space. So another quarter of the building will basically be added.
So the conference center we're talking about is adjacent to the Hilton Garden Inn downtown. Some people may not be familiar with even how that came about and was built. Can you give us a little history on that? So
Sure.
The development that occurred and then the existing facility.
Yeah, the parking garage, the conference center, and the hotel were all constructed in the 2011 timeframe.
Okay.
All of them opened around that period of time. We had an original agreement with HCW to build the conference center. The city financed the parking garage. We financed the conference center with a repayable loan feature. Of that 9.5, they were to pay back $5 million. So this will add on to that existing agreement. Okay. So all their obligations under that the existing one will still be in effect. We'll add payments now moving forward that will have HCW and the city picking up a share. Now, if you recall, back in January, we also increased the transient guest tax rate by 0.5%. So to stay in Manhattan right now, it's 7.5%. For a transient guest tax rate.
And that's a tax added on to your lodging bill if you stay at a hotel or
Correct.
possibly an Airbnb, something like that.
And you pay the sales tax rate too. So today it's $895 plus the 7.5 to stay in Manhattan at a hotel.
Okay.
This will increase it to 7.5, and it's been in effect since April. And we generally generate about $130,000 per 0.5%. And we forecasted that now into the budget moving forward.
And that'll help pay off some of that conference center expansion.
And it's been dedicated for that full term of debt service that we plan to issue for this project. HCW is also adding 40 hotel rooms to the existing Hilton. The existing Hilton has about 135, so it'll add another 40. And that green space is just directly north of the Hilton, between the Hilton and the Fairfield. Is where they'll construct those additional rooms. So that'll be underway. If this gets approved, there's an ordinance that's also in front of the governing body to issue debt for the project. Since it's a special type of project, you have to issue general obligation economic development bonds that allow us to put our full faith and credit behind those bonds, and we can structure those for 10 or 15 or 20 years. But it takes an ordinance to pass this particular bond issue.
So a couple items the City Commission will be considering. There's a lot of economic impact that comes into conferences. Our Convention and Visitors Bureau works quite closely with the conference center to bring in conferences, which is more people visiting the community, staying in our hotels, spending their tax dollars and visiting the community. So adding that conference center expansion is really going to provide an additional benefit to the community. They'll be able to possibly have 2 conferences going on at once at the facility, which currently it's not really possible to do with the given capacity. So that'll be a good addition to the community if that goes through. Another item on the general agenda for tomorrow's City Commission meeting is quite a few items for the joint maintenance facility, the city maintenance facility. That is one of the projects that is, if the sales tax is approved, it partially will be dedicated towards funding that. We have plans to purchase land adjacent to the wastewater treatment plant off of U.S. Highway 24. We've negotiated with that owner, and we have a price for that. It's about $710,000, I believe. So that goes into the cost of purchasing that land and hopefully constructing that joint maintenance facility, which will house our fleet, street, forestry, parks divisions, utility distribution crews, all of our crews and city employees. So it'll be a lot of people, some big buildings for a lot of storage of equipment and people to really keep the operations going for the city. There's a couple other items that go along with that, Jason. One of them is going forward with a construction manager at risk, something similarly we're doing with the Aggieville parking garage.
Yeah, actually on the same agenda, we'll be recommending a construction manager at risk for the Aggieville garage. Yeah. They are attempting to go out, or Public Works is attempting to go out with a construction manager at risk RFP. So this process will kick off a notice to interested parties that may want to come in and partner with us to actually construct the joint maintenance facility.
And we're already working with, I believe, BBN, who's helping design the facility. So bringing in that construction manager at risk during the process will help them kind of bring us a guaranteed maximum price when they're ready to build the facility. So that way we avoid possible downfalls of designing it and then bidding it out and the bids coming in too high.
Yeah, this will give us a much better feel for the interior and exterior components of the building, having that expertise available to our staff and knowing we're selecting a quality firm to move forward with construction.
Funding for the joint maintenance facility, it's split between a lot of ways. It'll be a facility that we likely bond, I would assume, and then we're going to use a lot of existing utility revenues, so water, wastewater, stormwater fees, as well as some special parks and recreation dollars, special street and highway, which comes from state and federal gas taxes that are remitted to the city, and then a portion of that, about 7% of the total project cost, which we're estimating at about a $12 million facility. About 7% of that we're either looking at bond and interest, or possibly the 0.3 sales tax initiative.
Yeah, we had about $1 million gap in our finance plan to the governing body, and we rolled it into that 0.3 sales tax initiative. Whether it passes or it doesn't, I do believe we'll still advocate to move forward with this facility. It may require more revenues from other sources that we've already identified, or into the bond and interest, which will rely on sales tax and property tax.
Yeah. The last item on the general agenda for tomorrow is the combined e-cigarette and smoking ordinance. We had a work session with our city commission about a month ago regarding that. Back in 2008, the citizens did a citizen referendum process with a petition and got us a no smoking ordinance on the actual ballot, and City of Manhattan voters voted for it in 2008. That went into effect and it passed, and then it actually couldn't be repealed or amended for 10 years. Now that 10 years is up and we've passed our e-cigarette ordinance, which also prohibits vaping in indoor public places of employment, we're looking at combining those two ordinances because they're they have some differences in them, so we're trying to clear up some legal ambiguities and provisions to kind of not only match our local ordinances but the state Indoor Clean Air Act to make those consistent. A couple of the key decision points that the City Commission discussed at the work session about a month ago was smoking in parks and trails, which the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board not unanimously, but they recommended to the City Commission that they ban smoking and vaping within all the property boundaries of a city park and trail. We also talked about smoking in retail tobacco stores and vape shops. Back in 2008, when the citizen referendum passed, that ordinance was written by citizens. It prohibited smoking in retail tobacco stores. So you could go to other communities in Kansas and there's hookah bars or smoke shops where you can go in and actually smoke in those facilities. The state allows that. Our local ordinance didn't. Back in 2016, when we passed the e-cigarette ordinance, there were a lot of vape shops in existence, a couple in Aggieville and across the community, and our city commission at the time allowed them to vape in those stores. To keep those consistent, because we're combining the two ordinances, the city commission recommended that we prohibit that. So that'll be a change for vape stores. We got about 4 in the community, and if it passes tonight on first reading and then second reading at the next meeting, they wouldn't be allowed to do that anymore. So those are the items on the general agenda. It'll be live on Facebook tomorrow at 7 p.m. We also post our city commission meetings after the fact on YouTube, on our Manhattan, Kansas Facebook or YouTube page. Other than that, not much else going on this week. Next Monday, City Hall is closed. It's Veterans Day. In observance of Veterans Day, there is a Veterans Day parade. That'll be on Monday at 9:30. It'll be on points, so come on down and check out the parade. Also on Veterans Day, the ice rink opens in City Park. It'll be opening at 1 p.m., and then normal hours are going to be from 3 to 7 p.m. every day of the week for the winter. So with that, have a great week, and if you have any questions, please feel free to post them on our page. Thanks.